Learn the secrets of success. Exclusive insights and information from the experts. Tag Radio. Ready to let your mind go wherever technology leads? Then tag, you're it. Tag Radio. Here today. Imagine tomorrow. Okay, so now you've got a high-rise headquarters with big glass windows overlooking the downtown skyline and offices in several cities across the globe. Up comes some visionary-driven entrepreneur ready for takeoff, believing that the sky is the limit. Then the big question, what are the key gotchas that you wished you had known when growing your organization? Since experience is the best teacher, the Tax and Finance Society of TAG commissioned a research study to discover just what are the key management practices of successful technology leaders, especially the ones not so obvious and those simply not available by educational training. The results are in, and do we got gotchas you're going to want to know. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, September 25th, 2007, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. The Tech Talk topic is, if I'd only known, 10 gotchas from experienced, bruised, high-tech executives, as Tino speaks with Don Campbell, President, CEO, and co-founder of Virtual Management Technologies, TAG board member and co-chair for the Tax and Finance Society of TAG. Former senior exec at Idapta, Ross Systems, Comdata, and SunGuard, among other top software companies, computer services, and transaction companies. Don Campbell has been responsible for the successful startup of 3 high-tech ventures from ground up to sky high. Get ready, beginning visionaries, to find out the pearls of wisdom you can use to get where you're going just about gotcha free, as Tino and Don Campbell explore how to prevent the mistakes after takeoff from happening in flight. Wheels up.
Don, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here, Tino.
The Tax and Finance Society has been coming on strong. We're very proud of this one of our 20 societies that is doing some interesting things. I mean, one of the things that you guys took on was this research project. Tell me what the impetus behind the project was.
Well, as you said, the Tax and Finance Society has really tried to following the .com bust, as we might call it, try to reorganize itself and become of value to the principal stakeholders in our technology markets, which would be CEOs, CFOs, controllers, VP of finances, the head of legal, and everything. So we can go through a lot of the general topics that we know is important to them, areas around tax and governmental and state changes and the like. One of the things that we thought that would be particularly interesting to them is to take a look under the cover, so to speak, of the issues that organizations have in driving growth. Clearly, there's a lot of factors that come into play when you're driving the growth of an organization, whether it's a startup organization or whether it's a mid-stage organization. The same concepts come into play when you say, let's grow this organization. So that's the key driver behind it. And one of the things that we focus on in the Tax and Finance Society is what we call quality content. And we felt the best way to deliver this was to do some primary research from the technology base and see what we find.
And even though I guess some of our listeners would think, well, gee, isn't that information out there? It seemed to be some new territory. You guys found this to be, to some degree, a pioneering event, right? I mean, there isn't that sort of information that's at your fingertips that you could share.
You're absolutely right. I think part of and we said this in the seminar that we held the other day, is that a lot of the information you might get out of a Management 101 book, or certainly get from your MBA program. What you don't often get is the perspectives, and that's why we called it the 10 gotchas from the experienced or bruised executives. Is that a lot of times as you're going through your career and you've been through these growth cycles a lot of time, you look back, and when a decision is in front of you, you look back and say, I've been in this situation before. What did I learn from that experience, and what do I do going forward? And since such a large percentage of our membership base at TAG and the technology community throughout Georgia, we wanted to be able to share these gotchas, or what we're calling in the white paper, the pearls of wisdom with their audience. So we focused in 5 areas. We looked at the financial challenge involved in a growth organization, the growth challenge itself, in other words, the tools that are used to help drive growth, be it sales growth or percentage market share growth, whatever it might be. The management challenge, in other words, what tools, what techniques have you found that worked and what didn't work? Maybe some of those MBA books weren't quite right when they said total empowerment is exactly the way to go. Maybe there's some different perspectives. The 4th area we looked at was the market challenge. What conditions were out there when you brought a company to market? For example, if you were trying to grow during the 2001 to 2003 period, that was a pretty tough time for young organizations. What did you learn? What did you experience? And the final area is the people challenge. And we looked at this from 2 perspectives. One is that concept that says, okay, what are we going to do to manage these people, get them on the same page, and get them driving towards accelerated sales and the like? And the other side of the coin was, if you were a member of a management team or owner of an organization during that period of time, what were some of the things that you found either easy or difficult when you were working through maybe a merger, maybe the sale of the organization, or even coming to grips with a growth strategy?
So finance, growth, management challenge, marketing, and people, it's interesting categories. It sounds like to some degree it'd be the questions a venture capital person may be asking a prospective seeker of funds.
Actually, if you were to look at a business plan that any organization should have, and if a venture capitalist were to ask those questions, it's exactly what you'd get. In fact, one of the pearls of wisdom that we get out of the study was that an organization had been in operation for about 5 years and decided to package itself for a round of financing. And they actually didn't go for the financing, but they said they learned more from those discussions with a venture capital organization about how to view their company, how to view their growth, how to view their intellectual property, and they learned a great deal from that.
Well, talk a little bit about, I know you had a lot of data that you captured. There was a pretty good response to this survey. It's always difficult to get people to go into a survey and actually fill it out. So you guys had some good results in that. How did you organize your results?
Well, what we try to do is to organize it into two sides, and you're exactly right about that. We were exceptionally pleased with the response that we got from the technology community. Generally on something like this, you might get a 3 to 5% response rate, and we got about a 12% response rate from the technology community, and I think that's due to a couple of things. First of all, the overall rebirth and growth and sense of communal friendship in the Technology Association of Georgia, which I think is great. There's an overwhelming desire for people to help each other and learn from each other, and so I think this was part of it. While I can't disclose it, went through the actual respondees, you'd be surprised the level of people that we got and some of the very well-known names in the technology community here. If we look at the way the respondents broke down, the organizational size, about 86% of the respondents were less than 75 employees, and 75% of the organizations responding were in the $1 to $10 million range, with about 7% being in the $1 billion plus. So we got a good balance there, but again, we're kind of tending towards the small to mid-sized organizations. That is, in fact, exactly who we were going for. About 86% of the respondents said that their best growth rates were in the area of 200 to 300%. I mean, this is pretty astounding growth. And two-thirds of the respondents said that their worst growth rates were in the 70 to 80% range. So, again, we're talking about an industry in terms of high technology that has seen exceptional growth, and we, in fact, were able to talk to the people who were delivering the growth. So what better things could we accomplish?
That's very good. And so you got some really high-flying companies here with great growth, and I think that speaks to the work of the society as well, and your credibility that your team has built up. Well, let's dig into the findings a little bit. What were some of the key results of the study?
Actually, coming back to the question you just asked before I get into this, which was how did we structure the responses? And the responses were structured in two ways. When we look at the cumulative effect of the data, it became very clear to us that there was multiple choice questions, about 36 in all of them. It did take the respondees a good 15 to 20 minutes to work through these questions, and we really thank them for the time that they allocated to this. So we structured it in what were the answers to those multiple choice questions, and then what were some of the verbatim comments that we got. And that's what we call the pearls of wisdom. And as we look through literally hundreds of comments, and they are all focused in the 5 major areas that we had just discussed, we decided that the best way to present this data was to present each of the pearls of wisdom in and of itself. And so every reader of the white paper, everyone who came to the seminar, would in fact get a different perspective from the results than anyone else. For example, we didn't think it was our responsibility to try to tell the world based on an average or mean of the types of verbatim responses that we got, that this is in fact the de facto truth, because it depends on what industry you're coming from, what size organization, what your background is, and so on and so forth. So what we ended up doing, Tina, was listing out under each of the 5 sections we talk about the pearls of wisdom that we felt were the strongest. And I could go through a couple of those if you'd like.
Yeah, let's talk about the pearls of wisdom. I think that our listeners would be very interested in that.
And what we'll do is kind of maybe get to what we call the 10 gotchas at the end that we kind of selected as, this is a pretty good representative sample. Let's look first at the financial area, the financial challenge. Now, again, a lot of this will sound kind of management 101, but when you read between the lines, there's a lot of interesting things that go on. And the first one we asked, the financial challenge, we asked questions about, what were your most important issues around cash and cash management? What did you do? And these are some of the verbatim responses, and I'm reading these in quotation marks. First one is, never lose sight of the fact that this will occupy a minimum of 101% of your time. In other words, getting the cash position and whatever. Something easy as better forecasting leads to better cash management. Another comment was better banking partnerships, one that is invested in our growth, not one that is more concerned about reacting to industry downtrends, stifling our growth based on the industry, and not on our actual performance. So clearly this is someone who's been through banking relationships and had something to say on the other side of the ball.
Right. Might have been bruised somewhere along the way.
Yeah, it sounds like, maybe the Band-Aid's still on. Here's another one, conservation of cash early on. The last 2 companies I've been with made the mistake of building up too much infrastructure costs before revenue was generated. In both cases, he ate up valuable cash at a time when the company needed it most, and ultimately led to cutting of salaries and or firing of certain employees. So clearly, again, someone that had been bruised along the way.
Right.
Let's move on to a different section. We'll call this one the growth challenge. And when we looked at this, we said, the challenges of growth are really many. So we asked our executives what they thought the key drivers behind growth, what strategies work best, what limiting factors they experienced out in the marketplace in terms of driving these things. And so a lot of the answers were based on a couple of factors. One was the lack of competitive advantage. And we'll see this throughout a lot of the areas where research and technology in the technology industry is really the penultimate way to deliver product. If you don't have a better product, if you don't have differentiation, if you don't have a ready marketplace, none of that's really going to matter. And you will be, a potential also-ran type of an organization.
Right.
Let's look at some of the verbatims out of this area. One was identifying critical interdependencies and managing them with a high degree of discipline. Now, the interesting thing here is that, if you look at a mid-sized, maybe more mature organization that has multiple departments, what essentially this person is saying is look at the seams between each of the functioning organizations within your own company and see how well they're meshing. Is sales meshing well with marketing, with product management, with the support desk, and so on and so forth. So that was one of the nice pearls of wisdom. Here's another one. Align your product with the market and invest heavily in sales and business development. One of the overriding factors, Tina, was that there was a very strong opinion of everyone that sales is by far, direct sales is by far the most important thing. But a very, very strong second was the management of partners and alternative distribution channels as a way to drive accelerated growth. So we got a lot of people talking about that area. One of our respondents said, surround yourself with excellent customers, employees, and investors, and do not waver on this. One person can slow the whole ship down. Sounds like someone who had a person do that to them.
Right. And you have the people issues that are always tied in with seems like all the other ones, the finance and the growth certainly.
Exactly, and you see that happening a lot. Here's a person that wanted to distinguish what the role of the CEO needed to be. And by the way, from a CEO perspective, about 70% of the respondents to the survey were CEOs. This one reads, management at both executive and tactical levels need to pay attention. At the executive level, the knowledge of the technology is less important than the ability to execute a clearly articulated vision and strategy. Strategic management trumps reactive management. If the company was launched and managed during the early years at the founder's kitchen table, there must be more of a vision than yearning for a larger kitchen table.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. So the next section we went into was the management challenge. In this one, we really wanted to find out what tools of the trade in terms of management really helped. We asked an interesting question, which was about, do you believe your organization was overmanaged, undermanaged, or effectively managed? Interestingly enough, the majority, or 57%, believe their organizations were undermanaged during that growth cycle. It's kind of an interesting gotcha in terms of what people should look for going forward. And the balance felt that they, and this is 37%, felt that they were effectively managed. We dealt with some discussions like, did you outsource things? In other words, did you say, look, my core competency is in a certain software technology. I don't need to be doing payroll. I don't need to be doing legal, IT, or another form, like, for example, manufacturing off-site. So payroll processing and legal were the most outsourced tools. Computer services and accounting and finance were about a little over a third of the overall vote. So and when we're talking about offshore technology manufacturing, some of the key issues were quality, protection of intellectual property, and then supply chain consistency.
Why don't we try to touch on one or two pearls of wisdom from market and people, since we're running through the five.
Okay. In the market area, one person said, industry context, a golden Rolodex can greatly discount the investment needed to create market awareness. So in other words, use your resources, use your contacts to drive awareness, because if they're good contacts, they'll make the difference. Understand who will buy and under what circumstances, then translate the understanding into a step-by-step plans that are executed and then monitored for effectiveness and adjusted accordingly every step of the way. On the people side, we looked at different types of management, and in this case, empowerment is by far, it was 70% of the response, the thing that people really believe is the best management tool of all, especially with young organizations. But here's some of the gotchas. They said, make sure you build a strong bench for backup, or a good relationship with a decision maker and a potential partner builds awareness more quickly and for less money than the cost of building such awareness over time using external or indirect means. For small companies, the right chemistry is a must as you add team members. Culture, Tina, was an interesting subtopic that went through all of this, and basically the message is, if you're going to create a growth company, you have to create the right culture for growth and use the right techniques.
Well, this is all great information, and I'm sure some of our listeners that weren't able to attend the session would like to see the white paper on this. Where can they find the white paper, Don?
Tino, the white paper is going to be posted on the Technology Association of Georgia, which is tagonline.org, and then they go to the society pages and go to tax and finance, which is about, I think, the third from the last, and they'll see the white paper posted right there.
Well, very good. Your committee, your task force is to be commended on putting this together, and it sounds like, again, it's really important information, and I assume that maybe periodically you guys will want to update it and see if the mood and the tone has changed.
I think so, and I think what, as we said earlier, the way to interpret this data is to read the verbatim comments and apply it to your own knowledge. What we encouraged people at the seminar to do, Tina, was to take this, read it, take out of it what you want, and incorporate it into your business planning process. Don't forget some of the gotchas that other people have experienced and learn from them. Moreover, use organizations like TAG to gain access to the people who do have experience and are very willing to answer questions as you need them answered.
We've been talking to Don Campbell on Tech Talk. Don, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Tino. Enjoyed it.